Looking ahead to the trading week beginning April 14th, the first thing we should mention is that this coming Friday is Good Friday, which is a market holiday in the US, and it's also a holiday in the UK, Germany, Australia, and Canada. US stock and bond markets will be closed on Friday. The most important thing to watch this upcoming trading week is bond yields. We had a spectacular turnaround from the previous week where Treasury bond yields dropped double digits, and this past week they increased by historic amounts, with the 2-year yield rising 26 basis points, the 5-year yield rising 78 basis points, and the 10-year and the 30-year yields each rising 56 basis points. Specifically for the 10-year yield, that's the most significant weekly jump, going all the way back to 2001. This is tariff related and likely related to foreign governments selling U.S. treasuries. A possible replacement for those treasuries could be gold, which jumped to another new record high this past week. Also, silver shot up through $32. Copper was higher by 2.81% this week after having been lower on the week by 8.45%, and that's a pretty impressive reversal. The dollar in the aggregate fell 2.6%, which was the biggest weekly drop since early March, and it just completed its third straight week lower and its fifth week of the last 6 weeks in lower prices and lower closes. We also had quite a few Fed speakers coming up next week, including Fed Governor Christopher Waller, Philly Fed President Patrick Harker, Atlanta Fed President Raphael Bostic, and Fed Chair Jerome Powell speaking on Wednesday. We also have San Francisco Fed President Mary Daly on Friday, but markets will be closed, so we don't have to worry really about market reactions. Earnings shift into high gear next week with 65 companies reporting earnings that have market caps of over $1 billion, with the biggest names being Taiwan Semiconductor, United Healthcare, Netflix, Johnson & Johnson, Bank of America, ASML Holdings, Abbott Laboratories, American Express, Goldman Sachs, and Citigroup. Upcoming data next week, Monday, we have Japanese industrial production, an OPEC monthly report, and consumer inflation expectations in the US from the New York Fed. Tuesday, UK employment data, German and EU ZEW indexes, and the Empire State Manufacturing Index in the US. Later that night, we have Chinese industrial production data. Wednesday, we get UK and EU CPI data, US retail sales, which could be a pretty important data point, and a Bank of Canada rate decision. And finally, Thursday, we have an ECB rate decision, jobless claims, and the Philly Fed data in the US. That evening, we get national CPI data in Japan. And then, as I mentioned already, Friday, US markets will be closed.